They give you away to second unit, you know, you're not going to believe what the hell that is.
You know, what we're going to do with this is we're going to split it into 3 sections.
Okay.
And we'll just do reversals and such and such.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, let's do the film section first. Whenever you're ready. Mm-hmm. Okay. Hi, Robert.
Hi, how are you?
How did you get cast as Fred Krueger?
Interesting. I was involved and very preoccupied with a television series, actually a mini-series at that time called V, which was very good for my career, very popular. And I was thinking to myself, oh boy, you're going to be stuck in this series for the next 5 years, playing this sort of little nerdy, benign, E.T.-like alien. And I had a hiatus between the mini-series and the series, and this project came along. And I'd heard a lot about Wes Craven and seen his films and was very curious. It sort of struck me as a kind of a dark genius. And I had worked for Tobe Hooper before and really enjoyed the experience. So I said, you know, this might be something new. And I, at that time, did not realize that Freddy was in the constant drag, you know, the makeup. I thought that perhaps there was a before and after. So I went and auditioned. And I was in my kind of punked out phase then. And I remember like greasing my hair back. And I had a little lead pencil in the glove compartment of my sports car, and I put lines under my eyes. And I went in, and I'm quite the motor mouth. I enjoy talking, but I really held back, reined in, and sort of sat there and let Wes tell the pitch of the plot. And I played a kind of a staring game with him. And I guess that's what sold him on it. I mean, I don't really know. The casting director also, Annette Benson, was a big fan of mine. She had just recently gotten very kind of popular because she discovered Nicolas Cage, and she'd seen me screen test for another project for about 6 roles, and so she'd sort of seen all the tricks I had up my sleeve. And I think she talked me up a lot to Wes, but I guess it was a combination of that staring game and Annette Benson being in my corner that got me the part. But that's the story.
What's going to happen now that all the Elm Street kids are pretty much gone?
Well, yeah, Freddy's sort of like cut a swath through the pertinent relatives, I guess. But I think what they're going to do for Part 5, as I understand it, is sort of a Rosemary's Baby twist. And Lisa Wilcox, who portrayed Alice, was a friend of an Elm Street kid. That's how we kind of justify it. But I think Freddy's lost his powers, and he somehow permeates. She's pregnant in Part 5, and he somehow gets into the fetus with his sort of evil ways, and I'm not certain how he taints her, the drinking water. They'll think of something, you know. But that's how it works. That's how we're going to like kind of bring him back, kind of resurrect him that way.
And what do you think, or why do you think Freddy has achieved such fame and status?
Well, I don't think it's just Freddy. I think it's the series, and I think that part of it, I think the real key, and you're not getting a real fresh answer here, but I think the key is that the movies take place in a dream. It is, in fact, the Nightmare on Elm Street. And everyone that sees it, you know, overseas or in the States, can identify with that. Everybody's had a bad dream, or a daydream, or a nightmare. So you have that common denominator dream. Combined with that, I think that we've taken the films in a really interesting direction. We've kind of left the area of gore and violence and gone in the logical area of special effects, which reinforces and underlines the production value of the dreamscape or the dream state of the nightmares. And so you get a lot for your money in our movies. And we get a lot of the money on the screen, if not all of it, when we make these movies. And we spend more each time out because we're a profitable franchise. And I also think that, you know, Freddy and the logo and Freddy's sense of humor. There's also, I mean, if you want to get intellectual about it, there's a certain underlying thing going on in these films, kind of a subversive, I call it kind of subversive, which is, I mean, Freddy is the embodiment of evil, all kinds of evil, whether it's pollution or whether it's crime or whether it's incest or whatever, child abuse, what have you. Freddy really is sort of the sins of the father being passed to a new generation, and a new generation's awakening to the evils that exist in the world. And Freddy's on Elm Street, which, as I deal with it, represents that kind of Dick and Jane primer that we all had in grade school, and Elm Street is that sort of bastion of white Anglo-Saxon Protestant America, where people have kind of, you know, gone out and bought their Cuisinarts and their BMWs and their power mowers, and they're kind of turned their back on the problems of the world. But guess who showed up, you know, to remind them? And I'm not saying that makes Freddy, you know, benign or correct. Freddy is absolute evil and not redeemable at all. But he does sort of symbolize that on a whole other level that I think Wes Craven kind of stuck in there.
How do you see Freddy as a horror figure compared to others?
Well, I mean, I see Freddy as I don't play the symbol, although I do recognize that there is a symbol there. Freddy is probably the closest way to really pigeonhole Freddy would be in the German culture. I believe they invented the boogeyman as a way that the Germans are known for, with their penchant for discipline, to keep their kids in line. In the 18th century, the boogeyman figured in a lot of grim type fairy tales and stuff. You know, if you're not good, this man will come in the night, you know, and punish you. And so he's sort of an outgrowth of that. I tend to think that I put a little bit of impishness to him, and a sort of a popular culture vocabulary that he uses. You know, I kind of see Freddy alone in his sort of diabolic boiler room there with the children's beheaded dolls lying around, talking back to an old black and white television set, you know, with a dart gun and shooting it. I mean, he really has no sympathy at all for the culture or for the future or for beauty. And we know that two wrongs don't make a right, and the fact that the vigilante parents turned him into a human candle, the guy's pretty ornery.
And what would you like to see happen in the next few Elm Street movies?
Well, I'll be quite honest with you. What with this series and trying to top 3 and 4, which I'm very proud of. Both Chuck Russell and Rennie Harlan did terrific work on those movies, the directors. I don't know. I'm contracted to do a Part 5. When I set my deal for Part 4, they said yes, with the proviso that I would do a Part 5. And knowing that I had to do a Part 5 is which is how I got talking to doing the series, because as long as I'm doing a Part 5, I can do the series in the interim. I've got to do another one anyway. I'm going to be linked to this guy, Krueger, for a while. And they also gave me the subsequent carrot of letting me direct. And so I'm having a good time now. When I stop having a good time, I'll probably back off. But between Phantom of the Opera and then Nightmare 5 and then going back into this series, I'm going to be quite literally dog meat, you know, long about the end of the summer of '89, and I'm going to need a rest, or at least I'm going to just want to direct for a while and maybe just pick and choose some guest star work or some supporting work and features. So I don't know if there'll be a Part 6. If there was, and knowing what I know now about Part 5, I would hope to God they would do a prequel and go back in time and set it in the early '70s and show Freddy before and after, and show Freddy, you know, the twisted Lee Harvey Oswald janitor, and what makes him tick. Not beg sympathy, mind you, just have him kind of as this great classic screen villain, and then see him as a victim of the vigilante justice, see him go to trial, see him get off, see him get torched, and then perhaps end the film with him healing himself as much as possible, sort of home remedies for burns and stuff, and see him creeping into the Elm Street neighborhood for the first time and find it like a look-alike for Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy, and see her as a child. Or maybe get Heather and, you know, put an ace bandage around her chest and put her in pigtails or something and make her look young. And so the audience, who are by now fans of the series, would know what's coming and know that he's about to infect Elm Street with his revenge and end it there. You know, I think that would be very interesting to see a prequel.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now we're going to do Part 2. Part 2, we're going to talk about the TV series.
Okay.
I'm sure we'd like to plug that one.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay. What did you first think about the idea of a Freddy TV series?
Well, New Line had been approached several times before. Since Nightmare 1, the show's been a huge hit, but it took at least the first 2 to sort of resurrect New Line. They were a very small company. And with the success of Part 2, they really became a player. And then with the huge phenomenon of Part 3, they were really on the map as a company. And in that interim, they were approached because I believe Tales of the Dark Side or Friday the 13th, one of those shows had already gone into a syndication format and was doing quite well. And we rejected, I can't remember what the company was, but they were a big company, King World or someone. And then after Part 4, the Lorimar people. Now you can't get any better than that company came to us in terms of television, and they wanted to do much of the same idea that I had said that I would be interested in, which was, even though I knew it would take a while for us to kind of find the level, especially in this kind of guerrilla television way we work. We shoot these shows in 6 days. We wanted to make it a show that in syndication would, grow as a cult favorite, much as Twilight Zone and the old Alfred Hitchcock have in their sort of third generation attraction to young audiences. And by that I mean that we wanted to appeal immediately to that third generation Alfred Hitchcock Presents on Nickelodeon, Twilight Zone, marathons on Thanksgiving Day audience, the people that are discovering it now. That particular kind of hip teen audience that likes Nightmare on Elm Street, that likes, maybe they like heavy metal, but they're bright kids and they like that kind of strange, offbeat, and bizarre. And so we wanted to make these in that tradition of Alfred Hitchcock and Twilight Zone. And Lorimar was the first company that agreed along those lines. Jeff Freilich and the people in power there, Scott Stone and Bob Shea from New Line, they roughed this thing out. And we're still in a bit of a shakedown cruise. I'm just finished shooting show 19 of the first 22. I think maybe 12 or 13 of them have been on the air. And of those 12 or 13, I would say 6 are terrific. And there's another 4 that I can live with, and maybe there's 2 that I'm disappointed with. But given the fact that this is our first season, and it's a touchy subject, it's a touchy show to do for television, we want to keep it, we want to keep the subversive nature of it. We're doing a thing with the show now where we don't really have particularly sympathetic people on the show, and we don't have regulars. So it's easy to attract good young actors because they're like the star. They don't have to kind of come in and be the new kid on the block with a regular. But on the other hand, it's sort of difficult to find the tone and find someone that you can identify with but also make sort of non-sympathetic or deserving of his sort of comeuppance from Freddy. And then with Freddy, I can't do it every day. I could not survive the makeup. Nobody could. So I can only work about, I work like a day a week as Freddy and then a day a week with voiceovers or directing or something or other participation. And so I'm sort of like a surrogate host. I'm sort of like Rod Serling or Alfred Hitchcock. And they bookend it with me and they sort of exploit the humor of Freddy. But then every 3 or 4 or 5 shows, it's what we call a Freddy show where I actually figure in the plot. And that's I just came off one of those last night I was telling you earlier. So that's basically what we're trying to do with the show. And I know as of show 19 is great. It's called Safe Sex, if you can imagine what that's about. And my show I'm very proud of. And I know they have another one. There was one that was just on that's terrific, which we did, which has we have a little bit of themes in them. We've hit on, even though we lampoon the safe sex thing, we certainly bring it up. And we had a kind of an anti-nuke show. And my show is a kind of strange parable about stereotypes and the woman as victim, both in the cliche and classic ingredient of the horror genre and in life. So we're playing around with that kind of latent subversive element that the movies have as well.
What do you think about the competition, like Friday the 13th, and now I heard they're coming out with Creepshow, the TV series?
I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of them. I mean, I've watched a couple of them, and I have friends on them. I know that the Tales of the Dark Side, when they were in New York, had just an incredible talent pool. And I've seen several Tales of the Dark Side I really liked a lot, and I think they did amazing things with their budget. I don't know about the Creepshow, and I know Shelley Duvall has a new series about nightmares coming on that I'm hoping to work for, to direct a couple of, and knowing Shelley's work in the past with Fairy Tale Theater, I'm sure that's going to be really good. I haven't seen a lot of the new show Monsters, but I did see one the other night. Nancy and I caught one the other night playing channel roulette with a remote, and we just saw the tag of it, but it looked very interesting and very well done, very stylistic, especially for television. I always say, and I don't like to be an apologist for the horror genre, because if I had my druthers, it would probably be not the genre that I would have liked to have sort of had my breakout in, but it's treated me very well. But I have noticed, with my kind of like hindsight and catching up on all of the horror movies and stuff, that it's really the place where the best young directors have always cut their teeth, because you can really show your stuff. You can really, if you got chops, it's a place to show them, because you're not doing some straight fare. You're allowed to show a sense of style and imagination much more in the horror movie. And the same thing with the horror television now. It's not like sitcom. You can really get away with a lot more. You can really get away with a lot more film technique, and that's what I meant when I said guerrilla television. We're always have somebody laying on his back on a skateboard being dragged around our drafty set out there in the valley, and so it's fun. I mean, everybody's working for a little less than they normally do, and we're working for longer hours. But you're not coming to work every day doing that same sitcom routine. it's different every week, and we have special effects, and we have a new cast every week, and we're always playing with camera angles and fog and radical lighting. So it does keep us all on our toes.